What is a functional programming? Functional programming is a declarative paradigm in the coding world. It's a high-level way of programming that pushes users away from step-by-step code while still achieving the same end result. This reduces complexity by making their code more concise and more easily readable. Functional programming revolves around the idea of pure functions. A pure function should always return the same output with the same given input. If I provide a function with the input of an integer value of 8 and that function squares it, it should always return 64. A pure function should also never mutate state outside of its local scope. If you call a function and you don't have to use its return value because it mutates a state variable outside of it, then it is not a pure. What are some key characteristics of functional programming? First, you have a state does not exist. Functional programming thrives on immutability of its variables. A lot of the flexibility in execution of statements is achieved if the variables are known to not change state in advance. Variables in imperative languages are inherently mutable in nature. The program is set up as a series of expressions which act on variables and alter their values as they keep executing. And two, we have a low importance of order execution. In functional languages, as variables are immutable, there are no side effects of any changes done to the variables in other parts of the code. Order of execution then becomes less important. The language designers use this freedom to build flexibility in execution to achieve the best performance. In a procedural language, variables are assigned values which undergo changes as the program executes. The values of expressions in the program in turn depend on these variable values. If order of execution is not followed and variables are assigned values out of turn, then the values of expressions which use these variables may be incorrect as a side effect. Order of execution is important in imperative languages to avoid such side effects. And 3, you have functions are first-class objects. Imperative languages rely on passing values as parameters to methods. The code method then passes the computed output back if required. Functions objects are not allowed to be passed as parameters to methods. In functional programming, functions can be passed around as first-class objects to other parts of the code at runtime. This gives the programmer flexibility to alter logic at a runtime. Why add a functional programming to a Java? Java 8 comes out with new features like streams, lambdas, and a functional interface. Streams allow us to declaratively iterate over a collections through multitude of intermediate and terminal operations to manipulate the data being passed through in a functional styles. Among each of those operations, we use lambdas and functional interface to provide the functionality we need to each method depending on the result we are looking for. These new features were not intended to specifically allow developers to write Java in a functional manner, but actually provide developers a more accessible way to handle parallelism so they can focus on what needs to be done, not how it needs to be done. Okay, in this course, we are going to use the following tools. Primarily, we are going to use an integrated development environment, IDE. It is a software application that helps programmers develop software code efficiently. It increases developer productivity by combining capabilities such as software editing, building, testing, and packaging in an easy-to-use application. There are many tools for that. We have an IntelliJ, a Visual Studio Code, a NetBeans, and so on. But for our cases, we are going to use a VS Code. Secondly, we are going to use a JDK 17. The JDK is a development environment for building applications using the Java programming language. The JDK includes tools useful for developing and testing programs writing in the Java programming language and running on the Java platform. So now, without further ado, we can look forward to the next video.